All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to SkillsBoost 2026, the release of our findings. We will start now with Olivia doing an introduction. Olivia, over to you.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can all hear me. I am sitting in a room following a meeting. Um, so my name is Olivia Dias. I am a director in the Department of Economic Development in a unit that's responsible for tech and innovation in the Western Cape. Right, so I'd like to share with you a little bit about why we did this research and why this research we believe is important for stakeholders in the Western Cape. Today we are going to have our academic service provider consulting team present their research and they'll take us through the depth of the information and exploration of our skills supply and demand study, and take us through the roadmap that we'd like to take forward in conversation with stakeholders in the province to deal with the issue of identifying the critical issues and engaging on the skills gaps that will make us uncompetitive in the region. This research is contextualized in a bigger strategy we have in the province called Growth for Jobs. This is our economic strategy, and it underpins everything we do in the Western Cape government in relation to growth in the Western Cape economy. Within the Growth for Jobs strategy, there are 7 priority focus areas, and those are those round circles you'll see, and it underpins our ambition to have R1 trillion inclusive economy by 2035. One of the 7 priority focus areas is in the category of technology and innovation. This is a critical lever we see that we need in the province to future-proof our economy. And this research, therefore, is embedded in this bigger agenda of growing an inclusive breakout economy for the region. So within the 7 priority focus areas, the flagship for Growth for Jobs in terms of tech and innovation, there are 3 flagships. We're looking at venture capital, and that's really about understanding how we drive investment in the province in the tech and innovation space. We're looking at innovation and R&D, and that's about ideation and coming up with new opportunities and finding ways to commercialize these ideas. But within that, the middle circle speaks about ramping up tech skills. Fundamentally, one of the biggest barriers we have to growing the tech ecosystem in the Western Cape is around having a steady and growing pipeline of work-ready skills. And this research sits within that space. So why is this important? We know that every sector in the economy now requires some level of digital readiness, digital capability. We know that within the economy in general, skills is a fundamental structural barrier, but within the space of tech and innovation, it is one of the biggest barriers. It is possibly the single biggest structural barrier to growth and investment. We lose opportunities around big, large-scale investment, which leads to jobs frequently because we just don't have the volume of talent required to maintain that investment. So this research is trying to understand what the gap is and what the future needs will be. So we recognize that digital skills, and in particular now with the transition to AI, is no longer nice to have. It is a critical and essential component. And so when we have this pressure to industrialize, to embrace technology in businesses, and we also have a continuing lag in the skills that can address these needs in the business, we remain uncompetitive and we fall further and further behind. We are not competing just in the country, but we compete globally with the right skills and talent. And as we move to a world where AI is more fundamental, we need to include that in our skills need. So why is this important? This is my last slide. For job seekers, we'd like people to understand where the in-demand skills will be in spaces of tech and innovation. For businesses, we'd like you to understand where the opportunities for productivity improvement is, where you'll be able to reduce costs, where the future outlook on your business is in terms of 5 key industries. And for communities, we'd like you to understand the opportunity that we're trying to create in the province of the Western Cape. We'd like to attract investment. One of the areas of investment is tech and innovation. So building that capability means that we are able to improve our investment readiness, increase job creation, improve livelihoods in the region, and understand that we don't compete with each other, but we compete with the world. I now will hand over to Dr. Sean Kruger from Enterprise University of Pretoria. He has been the champion, the lead advisor on the work that we've doing and unpacking in SkillsBoost 2026, and he'll give you all of the findings. Thank you. Over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Olivia, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I do apologize ahead of time in case my voice does become a bit husky. I am suffering a little bit from the flu today, and I do apologize. So just to introduce, of way of introduction, I'm Dr. Sean Kruger, based at the University of Pretoria's Centre for the Future of Work. I'm currently the Deputy Director there, managing future of work skills as well as tech and innovation. Hence the discussion around what Olivia has said and why our team has been mandated to do so. In terms of the team dynamics, I will be leading the discussion today, although this was not done in isolation. This was done with Dr. Salibi, who's also a communication specialist, Prof. Rosalind Wesley-Smith, who mapped out our scenarios, Dr. Carla Skitter, who mapped out other key areas and shared agenda items, and of course, Prof. Bormann, who articulated several areas and industry-specific reports. As we are having the discussion today, I encourage you to take some notes, ask questions. I will be answering the questions at the end of the discussion, given that I want to go through everything and then we can have a nice unpack session, given everything that we have discussed. So just on to today. I will be using a PowerPoint. I do apologize, it is standard, but there's quite a lot of information to manage and process. Once we've done so, I'll also just give a light touch around the specific website that was built around this. And once we've done that, then we will move over specifically to the area that we need to do. Welcome to the Skills Boost Refresh for the year 2026. The idea around this was towards a digitally ready Western Cape. So yes, this wasn't just the city of Cape Town, this is beyond and the larger Western Cape region that we have been discussing. And it's specifically a synthesis around an as-is diagnostic, to be foresight and a shared agenda. The most important area around the discussion today. Just in terms of saving time, my camera will be switched off, but I will be here and available at all times during the discussion. So what you will notice around our key discussion and our discussions today is we're going to move from our methodologies and integration, as well as the as is, which means what has been happened, what has been articulated, what is the current status quo of the environment in which we operate, not only within the Western Cape, but the larger South Africa in that regard. We'll then move over to the to be or future sight areas of where we want to be and how we articulated those areas. Finally, ending on my most important and the key takeaway from today is the roadmap and shared agenda. I briefly touched on who does what in this regard, or what we'd like to see this to look like into the future. So given these dynamics, what you see here is the study's architecture. The work moved through evidence mapping, futures and scenarios analysis, as I've noted. And what you'll also notice here is we bring this together through a key synthesis. It wasn't done in separation or isolation in this regard. And the point around this was credibility. As the roadmap is not a generic intervention list, we didn't conjure this just from a stepping stone of logic. What we did was we focused on the sequenced evidence-based mapping and areas around how to make these decisions. From my side, a forward that I wrote around this specifically is What we see here is this is a strategic stake at hand. There are several digital capabilities now that affects people, not only how they work, how businesses serve their customers, but also how public services are accessed. The Western Cape has several strong assets in this regard, ranging from infrastructure to service providers and specific service sectors as an innovation base. However, there is some evidence that points that the assets that are currently in place do not always automatically become outcomes. A data center does not automatically create readiness in itself. What we also see that training courses do not always guarantee work readiness. The key around this is the system that we're looking forward to create is one that converts strengths into practical, capable people, not only ready for the work environment now, but also as we go into the future. From a methodological perspective, we mapped this out from an inception report. We then did, as noted in my current skills mapping, I'll go through the methodology very briefly now, to the 2B, and then again, what was quite different here in the engagement is around a design thinking approach with a workshop of 44 different key delegates around this. And that was, of course, articulated to get the key insights and stakeholders at hand, hear their voices. Of course, to also avoid bias and, of course, the opportunity for people to have their voices heard, we also did one-on-one consultations. Using this, we created value points and, of course, validated our findings from the significant amount of literature that we mapped. From a methodology side of things, the method does matter as it ensures that our report protects the accuracy of our findings. You'll notice our as-is report reviewed over 1,540 documents after deduplication, plus extensive sector and labour market data. The 2B phase examined demand signals, AI exposure, role shifts, and of course readiness around these dynamics. The roadmap phase used the structured design thinking workshop as mentioned, with the targeted interviews to test this logic. There are of course 5 sectors that were focused on in this regard, key to which are, and I will have this discussion through today, is information communication technology, or ICT, business process outsourcing, so BPO, tourism and hospitality, selected manufacturing points, and digitally disrupted technical trades. What this ultimately comes down to is, if people remember only one idea from today's discussion, it's that we saw that the Western Cape does not have a simple digital skills shortage. It also has a capability conversion problem, where access does exist in terms of several access points. There are several tools that are existing, and there's quite a lot of training opportunities around these. But these are not always converting consistently into usable workplace capabilities, not to mention workplace exposure, employment opportunities, and what Olivia has also noted is inclusive growth. That shift is why we're here today. We need to move from counting activities to testing conversion. So we need to look at the full process here of access, capability, work exposure, and employment productivity towards what we call a supercharged CAPE. When moving through our reports as well as website interface, you will notice here that it's moved through evidence pathways. Any logic that we discuss or predict here is predicated on the fact that we're moving from as is current readiness to future demand, and of course, tangible implementation that ensures our people leverage their potential in our digital future. Because digital capability is no longer just a participation in one point. And it's not only about software deployments and engineers, because it goes beyond that. Digital skills enable an economy that ensures everyone is included across their fields, not leaving out what they know, but integrating the capabilities at hand. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in the key protocols and the as-is report. This is quite an extensive report and quite an extensive section, which I will try to succinctly cover in today's session. There is, of course, a lot of data available. Joshua has posted it on the link on the discussion points. So if you do have any questions, all the data that we've predicated our discussions on is available. Just as a note, the evidence does show fragile foundational and functional readiness at the entry level. And we have found overall here that there is some uneven sector user capability with limited applied data capability outside core ICT areas. Our key finding here is also the supply side of the system is quite active. However, there's a lot of fragmentation And part of the discussion here in terms of the finding was discussed at the design thinking workshop. So given this, let's first look at the digital skills supply side. This is distributed across many places, and this is useful as it creates multiple routes into creating capability. But those capability creations are not always even. Providers might train for what is feasible to deliver, but sometimes employers need practical workforce capabilities. Workplaces may also demand readiness but not offer enough exposure to get the needed experience. This is why we also often see short top-up skills programs and work-integrated learning programs as modules that matter going forward. So as a key point here from the as-is report and findings from literature, the system that we have needs faster and more practical conversion routes as we progress. Culminating from this area is how we see digital skills as a layered capability system. It does not sit in isolation. What we found here and how we tried to map this first and foremost is that foundational readiness is the baseline. We can't jump to AI readiness immediately if someone doesn't know how to use basic mobile interfaces, move between systems, or integrate their current knowledge in a digital world. So from this side, device use, information handling, communication, and safe usage of any digital systems. We then move into workplace and sector user capabilities. This is more specific to their environments, where they understand the specific platforms, dashboards, customer relationship management systems, bookings, diagnostics, and other tools available to them that enable their workplace readiness. We then move on to, of course, specialist ICT, because this does remain critical, especially in cloud, cyber, data, and AI systems integration. Above all of these dynamics sits leadership and transformation capabilities. This is where we see that it cuts across the dynamics because without the support of leadership, these systems tend to fail. And then only AI is a cross-cutting layer. It doesn't replace the stack. What it does is it enables integration across it to try to get effectiveness and efficiencies within specific layers. The culmination from this, from a global perspective, is of course that digital skills are driven by digital transformation. Ultimately, digital transformation pushes capability upwards. You can't jump straight ahead into AI readiness. This is also a lot of the times true in my training experience and the strategic consultations I have been having. Because if your data, system, workplace tools, and foundational digital fluency aren't in place, the AI integration is seen as weak, and we see a lot of complaints around a return on investment for AI projects. So what we found from this report around the global and labor market dynamics here is that AI is an advanced layer, but digital fluency remains key. There's no substitute for digital skills and fluency in just jumping to AI. If the foundations are weak, AI adoptions actually creates more dependencies, poor judgment, and actually further exclusion than actual productivity. The data also supports this in this regard, where we're seeing a lot of jobs being displaced around this as digital transformation is driving various forms of value capture. Now, global evidence does support and show that there is major job turn, but there are new emerging roles alongside these displaced tasks. From a future of work perspective, the key skills that we require here are analytical thinking, creative thinking, and AI usage. Of course, what we still see on the decline is data entry and routine clerical work. From a local implication side of things, we should look not to train only for software proficiencies. We also need to look at capability for changing work processes, judgment, and supervision. The areas here a lot of the times show that supervision and understanding the value role around digital transformation is a key in the future of work. Then what was quite the difficult area, and there is a snapshot to this. This was taken from and scraped from PNET as well as the DHET report of 2023. This was the latest statistics that were available, and the snapshot was taken during June 2026. What this shows is there's several demand signals as well as supply. From a demand side of things, from a supply side, formal ICT related university outputs are visible, but they're part of a larger pipeline. The broader system includes science, engineering, and technology, not to mention the TVET and private providers. And what's quite brought up a lot of the times, not only in the academic and grey literature, but I'm jumping the gun here on the design thinking workshop, is workplace learning opportunities. On the demand side of things, we see that vacancy signals show demand for software, data, cyber, and IT support, not to mention business analysts and cloud capabilities. But this is not always that clean cut, because the evidence must be read as a formal side of things only. Informal data requests and provision has not been included in here. Given these kind of areas, I want to now focus more on the specific industry findings that we unpacked. These, of course, go a lot more in depth of what I'm about to cover, although these are the key takeaways from the report side of things. ICT and BPO are the two near-term accelerator sectors. ICT is a key production sector and enabling sector for the wider economy. Demand is shifting and continues to shift towards software, cloud, and cybersecurity data, but also systems integration and AI integration. BPO, or business process outsourcing, remains a major service export and job creation engine. However, the work is recompositioning for itself from voice-dominant delivery into omni-channel operations. We're also seeing in the BPO field workflow administration, automation support, and platform-based service work. So both these sectors require speed as well as key interventions going forward. Then on to a key and quite a difficult one that we'd love to also unpack more in detail given the time, is tourism and hospitality. What we're seeing here is a big shift towards a stronger need for digital marketing, how to manage bookings, how to integrate your customer relationship management system, how to use revenue tools, and of course, drive analytics. Especially for SMEs, they might have the expertise and technical competencies to manage a client in front of them, but their digital footprint remains rather poor. This places them at a disadvantage. Moving on to manufacturing, we see here that it requires, from a global perspective, an applied operational digitization, where we need to see more production data, digital quality, and predictive maintenance. What was quite interesting during our discussions and investigations on these protocols is that technical trades are not disappearing. More a case of their tasks are changing through the enablement of diagnostics, managing their jobs, also integrating smart devices in their fields. And then, of course, given this digital fluency predicated within the design of the framework, AI-assisted troubleshooting to make them that they're better at their jobs as well as more efficient. So ultimately, these sectors need practical readiness before advanced adoption in this regard. Culminating from this area, we've developed a key skills matrix from the as-is report. Across the sector, there are key capability layers that reoccur, not always the delivery routes that differ. So ICT needs deeper specialist pathways, given that it's focused speciality areas. BPO needs to look to more agent to analyst progression management. Tourism needs to look to support a lot of SME-facing platform capabilities. Manufacturing needs to look to plant-level operational digitization. And with the trades area, we need to look to enhance and enable modern workshop practices and digital diagnostics. Unfortunately, a digital skills program will not fit all of these. The roadmap needs to work through sector-specific plays anchored in a shared system of priorities. Given these areas, there are, of course, key leaders, followers, and laggers. The leaders remain ICT and BPO, but they do have high exposure to AI potential in this regard. Manufacturing and hospitality have key areas of excellence and pockets of excellence going forward, but there is room of improvement. Interestingly enough, the digital and technical skills are laggers in this regard. We are seeing fragmented digital adoption and weak enabling conditions, despite the fact that their jobs are a bit safer than other areas going forward. What we've mapped here in the culmination of our data, this is predicated on about, I think, 5 pages of the slides you're seeing here. What you're seeing here is from sector maturity across AI exposure, organizational readiness, skills readiness, and of course, computational maturity. What this means is there is value in strategic discipline. We cannot always assume that each sector should move at the same pace, and we can't always assume that in practice leaders are ready to navigate these pathways. What we do know is that we need practical tools, workplace exposure, and provider readiness to address these gaps in certain regards, but also, of course, focus on key areas as a danger point. Who do we focus on in this regard? Is, of course, the digital skills development landscape. Now, this is part and parcel predicated on what we do cover later on in the roadmap discussion. But it's interesting to see here how there's policy and governance as well as qualification agencies that integrate with funding mechanisms in order to enable the training providers to create competent persons who have the necessary digital skills to navigate the environment they operate in now and going into the future. What was quite interesting for me across the employers areas there is there are several ICT employers, BPO, technical, manufacturing, tourism, and of course financial. But the gaps is that there's no integrated digital skills strategy. Micro-credentialing is a recognized and acknowledged credentialing gap. And of course, the TVET curriculum requires a revamp going forward. Sometimes the ICT youth pipeline is stalling, and the BPO and ICT pathways do integrate and intersect. So it's sometimes unclear around how they integrate, of course, and where's the combination strategies, but they also have a high exposure to AI. Finally, what it comes down to is, given this environment, we need to ensure reskilling that is relevant across the areas, that the employers actually have someone who's competent and can apply these skills. The skills I'm talking about, of course, must be able to convert into usable workplace capabilities. As I've noted before in my starting slide, access is the starting point, ensuring connectivity, devices and platforms, but also capability. We can't just jump and throw someone into an AI world where they don't have basic digital fluency or the necessary tools to do so. And finally, from our discussion here, conversion needs proof. A lot of the times that we have these discussions is it can't just be a list of courses. We need to be able to articulate the key priorities and cross-cutting sector skills and capabilities needed. Given the substantive amount of evidence from the data that we assessed, what we developed is 4 key cross-cutting capability priorities. So I showed you the first slide that I said was quite important. This is the second most important slide. What we found across these 8 key areas is we must start with foundational work readiness. Across all sectors, and it's especially essential for our blue-collar workers and service entry roles, not only office work. Do they have the basic digital foundation areas to enter the workforce and use these effectively? Then move on to sector user capabilities, where each of these modules is predicated on the sector that they plan to enter. My favorite that continues for, I think, the last 15 years is data analytics and capabilities across these areas, because across ICT, BPO, tourism, and manufacturing, there's a big shortage in skills in analytics and AI. Cloud and platform capabilities continues to be a high value point in digital services. And with that, as we drive more AI integration and cloud and cyber and cloud infrastructure, we also see cybersecurity as a major risk going forward. Given these areas, we need to support operations and diagnostics. Once this is done, then we can look to focus on AI literacy and judgment across all sectors. It's not only a specialist skill, but how we use it specifically, knowing our areas. And finally, digital leadership, because without the support of leadership's understandings, we cannot take these needed skills forward. So this is the culmination of the as-is report and what we have found from global supporting evidence. Given this area, we now move on to the 2B report. And this is more the future outlook of where we see things. You might now be asking, Sean, all right, this evidence essentially shows the rising demand for data literacy, human AI collaboration, and platform fluency. The work needs to combine digital tools with context, as well as judgment, custom, and operational gains and value. So what the section I'm going to cover now essentially explains is how we can look to prepare for what is coming, not just only what the Western Cape currently has. In this slide deck and the 2B report, the combination is the most important of this, of the discussion priorities from the as-is, we now look to a future mechanism. The wider ICT foundations is continuous reskilling and lifelong learning, a continuous skill across the area, leadership, governance and risk, data literacy, human-centered and adaptive skills, then system thinking. These cross-cutting enablers run across the stack. But what you'll notice in the stack is, without the necessary connectivity and infrastructure in place, everything else will fail. Because this ecosystem stack is the bridge from infrastructure to actual AI readiness. Connectivity and infrastructure need to be the base. Data capability sits above the base, as AI and the dashboards that we need to actually make usable decisions are governed by data, reliable data. We then move on to foundational digital literacy, because this enables safe participation. And it's something that came through in the reports, but also in our conversation. We need to ensure that our delegates, from blue-collar workers, informal workers, and that inclusive society and economic growth, needs to ensure that there's safe digital participation, especially as we're seeing deep fakes integrate and the cybersecurity risks we are predicated to. Only then do we move on to applied and sector digital fluency. What this means is cross-cutting enablers that have that systems thinking, adaptive skills, evidence-based decision-making, leadership and governance within their sector-specific areas to be able to effectively navigate and create value within those business areas. And finally, then AI readiness and human-AI collaboration. Without the underpinning logic that you see there, if we jump straight to AI systems and integrations, these are predicated to fail. How then, Sean, do I move from this area? From the report, what we've done from a 2B perspective is develop a digital readiness model where you can start with experimentation, move to emerging packets of practice, and then start to embed from an operational perspective. Only then do we move to strategic insights, gain investments, and of course start to do redesign around AI work. What you'll notice there is the infrastructure data is in place. Then we move on to people, because without people, the necessary skills, the predicated strategic return on investment unfortunately fails. This, of course, allows us to be adaptive. And this is where leadership comes in, because adaptive maturity means that the organization keeps learning and remains resilient. The point for leaders is that AI is not just a tool of access. It needs infrastructure, data, people, systems, and governance. So in terms of a quick snapshot in this regard, we still, of course, see AI dependency as a resilience framework. As we were having the discussions and doing the as is and futures mapping, what we found is the key risk going forward is a big problem with humans is skill atrophy. In the sense of we're seeing over-reliance where AI erodes core analytical, creative, and judgment skills, the very skills I've told you that are needed for the future of work. We also risk a lot of the times vendor and platform locking, where if we see hyperscale cloud infrastructure, we're locked to one vendor. We might also see local relevance gap, where foreign trained models miss our local language context. We might sometimes see a loss of competitiveness, given that sectors that absorb AI poorly fall behind. That is a major risk in the digital skills landscape. And finally, data and security exposure, because as I've mentioned, as AI exposure becomes a key predicated tool, we need to ensure that our data is, of course, kept secure. So the resilience in this regard is, of course, predicated on these risks, ensuring literacy, ensuring options of multi-vendors, local LLMs and data protection, targeted sector conversion protocols, inclusive progression pathways, and the skills coming in there again, cyber, privacy, and governance baselines, where we embed security risks and data governance from the start. From a 2B perspective, there are quite a few interesting things that moving from the fear-mongering things to the investment signals. There's quite a lot of investment in around Microsoft's planned cloud and AI investment towards 2027, not to mention AWS Africa, and of course the 12 megawatt African data center solar project that enables these areas. Now, given these kind of areas, what I want to focus on is that there is also a risk of capability erosion, because as we start to do these kind of areas, we're seeing that more tasks are completed, AI is the frontier. But this means that a lot of the times there might be mistakes. So what we're also seeing is that as these AI systems come into play, we're seeing less enablement of outputs. So evidence shows that AI can increase productivity and speed, but in complex task environments, work's becoming less accurate and the outputs are actually spending more time of people. Now, with all this in mind, and the 2B given this predicated information, we now went and looked for a 4-scenario-based Western Cape. Supercharged, displaced, co-pilot, and stalled. We, of course, want to, focus on where we're going to plan towards the upside, where the risk signals are, and where, of course, the investment, where we can do no-risk investments. The predicated roadmap and shared agenda was, of course, predicated on the Supercharged Cape. This is our target scenario as we progress. It assumes strong digital and AI adoption, where the workforce readiness is high enough to absorb this change. This is, of course, where the Western Cape has real strengths: occupational enrollments, higher level TVET participation, and early coordination between DDAT, CETAs, and industry partners. These strengths, of course, need stronger activation, but the Supercharged Cape is fortunately not a forecast. It's a planning target that does require deliberate conversion of training into exposure, absorption, and growth. So given these kind of areas, our Supercharged Cape looks to accelerate ICT and BPO, scale digital fluency, and of course, track progression from an entry role to a higher level pathway. We see that from a technological condition point of view, there are, of course, exponential AI advancements and widespread workforce readiness. There is entry work changes, but pathways expand. So although entry roles are sometimes governed or restrictive, we need to focus on what's going forward. And then finally, what must be true is providers need to look to update fast employer host pathways and, of course, enable those ecosystem stacks I spoke of earlier. What we must avoid is this scenario is not automatic. We need faster technology because faster technology still widens the gap. So we need these entry pathways in terms of transition. So now you might be thinking to yourself, all right, Sean, what do I do? What do I do next? And here is what the evidence and implication shows from an action perspective. Mapped across each of these sectors. So the ICT, this is of course what we focus on is looking at a decision-ready area. ICT and BPO are near-term acceleration sections, given that unsurprisingly those digital capabilities enables this. Now, what that is strong direct upside from Cape Town cloud and AI infrastructure, but the pipeline is a little bit thin at this side. So there's, of course, associated actions to build AI integration, cloud, cyber, data engineering, and AI governance capabilities into it. BPO is where a sector is shifting towards supported customer ops and, of course, business processing as a service. Key problem, though, that we're seeing is entry-level workforce is still trained for legacy service models. So we need to focus the shifting and training of BPO as an area. There's an interesting webinar I'm looking forward to that was referred to me by a great colleague, which I'm looking forward to see how they're going to recommend those advancements. In the manufacturing space, what we're seeing is many organizations are not always digitized as much as they could be to absorb potentials, but they could gain significant plant level digitalization and superior fluency if done well through targeted predictive maintenance, production data, and digital quality. Tourism and hospitality. What we're seeing there, as I mentioned, is with strong digital pressures, especially in the SME space, digital fluency and operational capabilities are key. There were discussions around this, though, around is the training sufficient enough? And I think that is a discussion for another day because I do think there is lacking there. But the training on itself should focus on how to teach people to use booking systems, multilingual support, analytics, and digital marketing. Finally, onto technical trades. The trades are being reshaped by task areas. What is quite interesting here is that, according to the founders of Claude, is that Anthropic, is that we're seeing there a lot of the times that they're one of the safer environments, but the ability to leverage digital technologies is key and predicated on this. So we need to enable that they're embedding digital capabilities and fluencies in their pathways specific to them. Given these areas, we of course see the cautious watch out is technical trades And of course, ICT has the highest exposure, but also the highest digital capabilities going forward. So our priority pathways is it takes the sector evidence and it turns it into immediate plays. We, of course, have had these discussions around what specific actions are required. And given these areas, there's a strong future demand in ICT and BPO, as well as manufacturing and technical trades. But in terms of urgency, technical trades and BPO are one of the key areas to go forward. Which brings me onto our roadmap of key areas going into the future. The shared agenda is not snapshot from one person or lagged information or global dynamics. This is from you, our industry leaders, our integrated government employees, as well as academics. Because without a shared agenda, the implementation will fail. We might make the nicest reports, but without the integration of this, I think that's where everything starts to fall flat. And that is why our standard is sequenced, own, and credible, because we want to help everyone here convert the skills into access, capabilities, and work exposure, and ultimately inclusive growth. I don't have time to go through the next slides in detail, although they are available on our website, which I will show you at the end of the presentation. What I have noted to you is the specific readiness areas of the specific sectors that we assessed around those readiness. What you will note on the website is how we can see this at a glance and what opportunities to take, and of course, where the opportunity is across ICT, BPO, manufacturing, tourism, and technical trades. So what we need going forward is a coordinated pathway for action, access to digital tools, stronger leadership and governance for digital and AI adoption, and most importantly, conversion, where if training is done, it's actually integrated into work exposure, relevant employability, and inclusive participation. This is where the digital skills development in the Western Cape must be seen as coordinated. It's not just a set of isolated training activities. That would have been very quick to do. Rather, what we did was to take all these insights and build a shared agenda portfolio. What this means is, ladies and gentlemen, is that foundational digital fluency is the core. Then we move to demand-led pathways into work. A lot of the times in the conversations I'm sure you're having at home is everyone's trained to do a university degree, but are they relevant for the market? And I think that's the key area here. Mixing out the digital fluency and readiness for demand-led pathways that ensure once they are qualified, there's work waiting for them. In order to do so, we need to ensure that there's an ecosystem that's coordinated through syndicates. Given this, trusted opportunity navigation. Now, when I say trusted, I don't know if you saw the latest area where LinkedIn is currently being sued that's been showcasing fake jobs to entice people to join. That's just one example of many of how we must ensure trust through these areas. Then, once these predicated areas of DDAT are in place, looking to ensure that teachers and educators are ready, current workforce upskilling, and of course, quality assured, flexible credentials. Ultimately, what this comes down to and will fall flat is if we don't have the local access and inclusion infrastructure to ensure even those that are vulnerable are ready. AI readiness is embedded everywhere. It's not a separate tack, but it's woven through all 8 of our portfolios. What's quite important here is without digital fluency, that of course falls flat. So how do we integrate this? We need to ensure first we have access, so the foundational digital literacy, local access and trusted opportunities, the capabilities around our current workforce reskilling. So what I mean by that is, yes, our graduates are being skilled and our matriculants are being skilled, but looking at the post-skilled readiness, those technical tradesmen with excellent skills in hand, we need to ensure that they are reskilled to be able to partake and participate in the digital skills landscape. Then quality assured flexible credentials. I'm going to make a note here for the website. I want to show you just that the skills and micro-credentialing is seeing a big area. It's not always everyone that must do a university degree. Rather, that an organization might be able to find a competent person and integrate them into existing micro-credentials to ensure that they're work ready. This, of course, does require coordination across the syndicates from industry to government, and that ultimately aligns to our demand-led pathways in work. The outcomes of which is enhanced work exposure employment, better business adoption and productivity, And ultimately, again, wrapping up to what Olivia noted right at the start is inclusive growth towards 2035. Only 3 key snapshots for today's presentation, just in terms of time, but our stakeholder voices. The top 3 that we selected for today, again, from the 44 participants and 12 semi-structured interviews. Having a smartphone doesn't mean people understand workplace tools such as spreadsheet, cloud platforms, or project management systems, especially AI tools. So just because you have access to the internet doesn't mean you understand how to use it. A big area that came through across not only the design thinking workshop, but also one-on-one interviews, leadership often does not understand AI. We've thrown this around it, but AI can make candidates look strong on paper, but without proving authentic competency, they might fall flat. Leadership readiness also notes this, because if they don't understand what the product is they want and throw AI at a solution, they're still going to create, unfortunately, an ill-advised and ill-aligned product for the business. And then the most important skill for using AI is judgment and knowing when to trust it and when not to. So these are just a few of the shared insights. I'm going to show a few on the website now, but what we've culminated this into 4 key priority areas. And you'll notice now it starts to sound very repetitive, but I hope it does, because we've taken and culminated the ASUS report 2B and shared agenda and insights into this. We need to strengthen our foundational capabilities, digital fluency and AI literacy, ensuring responsible use as this is a prerequisite, alongside leadership developments. Secondly, AI readiness and governance, where we need to ensure data governance and responsible leadership, where it's not just an organizational capability, but it's actually part of the entire organization's ecosystem. We need to look for more responsive labor market intelligence, monitoring real-time employer demand, as well as emerging occupation. And finally, inclusive and community-centered delivery, where we're encouraging trusted local ambassadors, multilingual campaigns, and accessible platforms for reaching SMEs and informal workers, because in this way we want to help convert efforts into actual outcomes. From a digital skills perspective, we have set out 3 implementation horizons. These are, of course, sequenced across 3 areas, but they are not standalone, and they can, of course, be run in parallel. But what we're seeing around this is there are key horizons, quick wins, longer term, and beyond. It's not that one has to go over the other. This is, of course, just what we see. What we do, of course, encourage is the sequence, because it can prevent the usual failure, launching scale before the system can absorb it. So our roadmap to action around this is 14 sequence steps, also available on the website. I'm going to read you through this area. We're then going to end on who needs to do what, and that'll be our discussion around this. You're looking at about 300 pages worth of reporting in the back end to culminate into these insights. So first and foremost, common digital fluency baseline. How to use workplace tools, how to do a search, how to run an email, how to use Excel, how to ensure your cybersecurity and hygiene, be aware that AI exists, through schools, TVET, and community sites. My second and my most favorite is step 2, is sector skills syndicates. Small working groups who understand their dynamics, industries, and opportunities, but can also coordinate roles, courses, and work integrated learning protocols that align credentials to actual demands. Thirdly, employability and opportunity hubs. There are, of course, several in the Western Cape that are already running, but expand to ensure informal integration through libraries and municipal sites, where they can start to help people navigate careers. Then ICT acceleration pathways, where there's a visible ladder for digital fluency into existing and IT opportunities. BPO agent to analyst transitions, where there's progression workflows of quality assurance. Tourism and SMME digital fluency, where we can set up clinics, WhatsApp for business, AI marketing, and digital payments. And my personal favorite, set up incubators, that we can show tangible areas and outcomes to track these efforts. And from a manufacturing side of things, again, leveraging and creating data. From this, move to digitizing modern technical trades and driving work integrated learning. Once this has all been done, flexible employer recognized credentials, because a lot of the times employers themselves are taking demand or see offerings where people are offering key areas that actually addresses it quickly. Then on to a bit of a discussion point, which I'm sure I'll have questions on, is the leadership AI adoption readiness. I'm going to take a moment here just to give you an example. When the cell phone first came out, workers went to their bosses and said, "Hi, I would like a cell phone, and here are the reasons." With AI, the board has invested in it. They now want our return on investment. They've thrown it down the ranks, and now they want to see use cases. And employees are expected to build those use cases. Leadership doesn't always understand what use cases are required. And this is one of the discussions I've been having, not only in this project, but several others. Also, once they start to drive AI adoption, we're seeing expanded cybersecurity breaches because of privacy and data is being leaked out there. Then finally, the last 3 points, dashboards to go, looking to funding and those venture capitalists Olivia mentioned, earners, and DDAT coordination across. So what does this mean? And where do we invest? So who does what? DDAT in Western Cape coordinates the roadmap and stewards it. Employers helps identify the demand areas. CETAs with the QCTO, of course, ensure work integrated in workplace training and pathways. TVET colleges expand to ensure applied and technical training. Universities continue to offer advanced knowledge. Private vendors, though, look to offer fast module delivery, who work with SACWA and the QCTO. Culminating in our no regret investment. Again, you'll notice here, culminating from the alignment of as is, to be, and the shared agenda, foundational digital work readiness, AI literacy, data capabilities, cybersecurity and privacy. We then move on to leadership and governance, workplace and supervisory learning, cloud and AI governance, and my work that will be conducted with the Michigan State University, human AI collaboration capabilities, where only once you've gone through all of those, you start to see how robust investments can actually reduce risk and increase participation across those possible supercharged CAPE areas. So of course, from today, our key area is to convert access into capabilities, and capability into work exposure, and work exposure into employment and inclusive growth. This requires coordinated action across government, industry providers, employers, and ecosystem partners. It can unfortunately not happen in isolation. The Western Cape has several assets at play here. The next step is, of course, culminating through those key syndicates and connecting what exists, scaling what converts, stop what does not work, and maintain a shared accountability system. This is, of course, the slides for today. I'm just going to briefly show everyone the website around this area that you can also go and see. It's a combination of all our reports on that regard, where you can see all the discussion points I've had today. Where are vacancies, formal supply chains, ICT specific, digital intensity, readiness and demand. If you're more interested in an evidence-based of 2B, scope and methodology and as is, the executive roadmap of the discussions I've had. And remember I mentioned earlier the ecosystem partners. Here you can go to see who does a digital foundation area, who does the sector pathways, who ensures work exposure, who does partner support, and the progression dashboard. We can always see partner programs specifically for ICTO, BPO, tourism, manufacturing, work integrated learning, CETAs, credentialing, AI readiness, and of course, government. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of information I've taken you through today. I do thank you for staying with me through this area, and we encourage any questions that you might have. How can TVETs better respond to digital skills needs? The discussion that I was having over there with one of the key leaders on this is actually focusing on technical trade work and integrating the technical trade work with those digital skills that I was talking about. How to do advanced diagnostics, how to set up WhatsApp for business, how to integrate a website as an example, and even how to do online bookings. The TVETs need to look to do that and integrate not only the technical skills of fixing a car, for which the record, please don't let me do, but see how they can take those and of course use the technologies to their advantage. For an example, if you are a mechanic, join a platform called Fixer, where people can of course join that and integrate across the board. This of course helps the TVETs as well as the university students who leave those institutions to be digitally ready. I think a key nuance there around the TVETs is technical tradesmen's already in their field of expertise, where we need to ensure lifelong learning that they can apply their skills, but also access new markets.
If I can maybe add to your response, Sean, Kelly, I think that's part of what the next figuring out how we bring this plan into fruition is part of a journey that we'd like to follow. So, for example, there's definitely a focus on how we collaborate with TVETs in trying to figure out how best to respond. Angela will be also talking about some of the next steps shortly, and we'll definitely have that on our radar.
Thanks for raising that, Olivia. And then as noted as well, if you have a look at the report or of course the website as well, you'll notice that there are implementation steps around that explicitly, and building that common digital fluency. Those sector-specific skill syndicates can of course work with TVETs and CETAs on that area. And if you go down to, it is here, digitally technical trades, you'll see here, digitally modernized technical trades. So update arsenal and trade pathways of smart tools, mobile job cards, diagnostic equipments. So any key questions that you might, maybe you're interested more in ICT, go have a look at the ICT acceleration pathway of what we recommend around those, given the findings. All the information is of course keenly available to you, and you can actually see these areas in that acceleration pathway. There you can see, oh, okay, Sean, I'm more focused on the technical trades. How do I scale it? What's the sector specific, and what am I looking for? We also, of course, give the evidence base of how we've predicated on those insights. Mary, so I'm just going to quickly read back your question and I'll answer it now. How can it improve its data in the sector? Now, data mapping is a key area, and I think that's the key, one of the predicated areas of working with ICT and why it's cross-cutting, is identifying where your data collection points are and where it's being stored. A lot of the times when we're doing consultations now, I'm doing it with two big companies, I'm not allowed to say who, but a lot of the times they have the data. They're just not articulating it in a specific point. And of course, they're not also finding out what the data value is. So from that area over there, we need to do a strategic review of what data is there, what can be used. And the word I'm going to use is what can be aggregated to make sure that you can create an attractive investment opportunity. Chris Marie, I think would be excellent. And I did note, I don't know if you noticed in my discussion, I did note that tourism was a very interesting one. Without digital fluency, you can't integrate AI. Just to give an example, I was giving training to a very large institution. And when I showed them that you can set up what we call a system instruction to make sure it actually reduces hallucinations, the entire team couldn't believe it because they've been using these tools without knowing these settings. So I think each sector does have an opportunity, and I encourage you to go through the website because in that sense, we've focused on the specific industries. Kelly, I think for now, and Olivia, you can correct me, we've done a lot of research and it's a lot. I think what the key steps now is to take this and make actionable steps for implementation going forward. I think once that's been done, then you can start to see additional research that is required, because then it can be perhaps sector-specific deep dives into what does it mean for a TVET college to integrate modernized technical trades. Excellent question, though. Oh, Yasmin, I'm going to repeat this question for everyone on the call. What is the state of play as regards to micro-credentials in South Africa? From a university perspective, we are looking to drive these areas and actually as a business model change. Of course, though, these changes are slow. We are, however, seeing from a QCTO perspective that they are looking to do so a lot more and perhaps also start to rely, and what we want to start to do is work more with industry like service providers such as Microsoft, AWS, and other key areas that micro-credentialing can be assigned, but also culminate in perhaps a diploma. Those discussions are taking place, although they are slow. I think the most important part that what we can do is start to map out what micro-credentialing to attain at this point in time that will hold value going into the future.
I will send you, I will share with you my email address and Joshua's email address. And then you're welcome to email us after that. We'd be very keen to hear from you.
You can also,
something else has come up from, yes, sorry.
Angela, what
yes,
you'll
sure.
notice is on the website, there's also a feedback form that you can ask questions or give anything around feedback that you would like to. And the reason is we want this to go and continue going forward. It wasn't just a once off. And I think that's the most important part. The research has been done. I think the call to action now is to implement these initiatives going forward.
Great. I think Tiara, hi Tiara, she's made a statement there. Yes, there are assumptions made, but I think the data provided here is a great grounding point to move forward on that.
Yes. And I think what's really great is, Tiara, as you've provided, and I mean, Tiara, what's also quite interesting is there are so many initiatives. There is so many initiatives that's happening. Hence the discussion and request for those syndicates to showcase to people of this is what is happening in the world. How can we culminate this to enhance digital skills and access across not only formal employment pathways, but also informal ones to help people transition and, of course, ensure inclusive growth.
So the link to the report is shared in the chat, and you can see that the sectors are indicated as well there. So there is a full report, an executive summary, and sector-specific reports, and all that is obviously available through the website as well. So that information, I think we've pretty much covered most reflections, questions. Again, if there's anything else, just pop it in the chat for now. And if I can just, some of this has been mentioned, but if I can just cover our way forward and just to close the session. So we are planning internal engagements with manufacturing and tourism units within DDAT. So we do definitely want to look at the sectorial priorities and look at how we can activate and implement those roadmap suggestions. We also want to look at where there are cross-sectoral skills and workforce development pathways. As Sean said, it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all, but where there are opportunities for the golden thread through the sectors, well, then we're definitely looking into that. We are also investigating those existing learning platforms and potential partnership opportunities so that we are not necessarily reinventing what is already available out there. We aim to engage with our City of Cape Town officials and any relevant special purpose vehicle entities where they are appropriate to moving this roadmap into implementation stage. And obviously future engagements with the relevant industry stakeholders, associations, and representative bodies. We understand it is a very complex ecosystem and we want to pull strings closer so we all have voices in the room and we can progress this as fast as we can. And lastly, just to share, if you have any other feedback, as Sean has said, there is the feedback form. Otherwise, you are welcome to contact myself or Josh. We have worked very closely with Sean and his team. It's been an enormous amount of work, as you can see and imagine, to absorb and digest and present. We have no doubt you will, each and every one of you here has, if not one or two more ideas to take back into your respective organizations and businesses, but we will be continuing those conversations. I just want to see if Olivia wants to perhaps come in.
Before that,
also
Angela,
final steps. Yes, Josh.
there's a question from Tando. Maybe Sean can
Okay.
answer that question in the chat.
No problem. I've got our website address on there as well, where you will also find other resources. that from a tech and innovation perspective and the projects our team is working on. So over to you then.
Thank you so much, and an excellent question. So I'm just going to jump on the screen here. So from the discussions that we are having in terms of an early warning sign from the displacement trap, is it goes actually, believe it or not, with data. Where is your data? What are you putting into the AI agents, and which AI agents are you using? I think the big key area there is seeing where your data is going and what's leaving, and of course, what the outputs are. I think it's a much longer discussion around what we've seen. One of the key corporates I've worked with is they've actually seen a data leak. And what we need to do there is define a tool policy, and then of course see to use that data to keep track. So I'm all predicated on using AI, but of course, where's the data and how are you using it will be the key discussion points around that from a strategic decision.
Thank you, Sean. I think, Olivia, we can just close for us, please.
I would like to add, maybe just as a to end off, our intention is to actually be having industry engagements to look at the various roadmaps that's been identified through this exercise, and then to engage with stakeholders from those sectors, also from various role players in the value chain, to co-create programs and design initiatives that can actually help us accelerate the workforce readiness program. And so this is a collaborative effort from both our tech innovation team, which is myself, Josh, Angela, and then also our skills unit that many of you would have been engaged with quite a bit. It's not individually driven by any one unit, but we'd like to engage with a multitude of stakeholders to make sure we identify the most impactful work to take forward. And so Angela and Josh and the skills team are going to be reaching out via our various sector units and also through our various other channels to academia, to the CETAs, to employers, to other training organizations, to be able to identify and engage with you to identify those opportunities. And that's going to inform how we also pitch for our own budgets next year and in the years to come. So we would love to also hear ideas. Please have a look at the website. It's really a great resource. We are wanting to also understand how better to be sharing dashboards of information and a way to have a more cohesive plan for this area of work. And so we invite you to engage. Josh, if you can put that last email addresses on the slide again, and that's how you can reach out to us. Josh and Angela are going to be spearheading this work from our team. Special thanks again to our reference group, and we had a very a wonderful group of people from different segments of the ecosystem help us inform this research, and then also to the Enterprise University Pretoria team. Thank you for exceptional work and for being great partners in this exercise. That's all from me.